first met Tom, I was living in a wee village called Kincraig on Speyside. And I'd been out in the hills that day, and I came home, and my wife said, "You've had a visitor." And I says, "Who's that?" She says, "So, a wee man with a red bobble cap, like this one." And I said, "Tom Weir?" And she says, "Yes, Tom and Rona were staying round at Mile House, round the corner, and they just popped in to say hello. But they're going to come back this evening," and they did, and they came back, and we had a real good blether. And that was the start of a smashing friendship with Tom and Rona. A friendship which was, I was going to say, it was almost like a one-way thing. I learned so much from this man called Tom Weir, because he was the sort of man you could just sit down and listen to for hours on end. And he inspired a generation. And that's probably my sort of generation. But he also inspired another generation. When his programs, his TV programs were onto DVD, it certainly inspired a generation. But more important, when his programs went out at night time, for some reason, STV put them out at all strange hours at night, 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. And Tom had a whole band, a whole following of insomniacs in Scotland who were up during the night and watched these programs. And I think Tom touched the hearts of very, very many people. And so many people ask me today, what was it about Tom Weir that made him so popular? And I always like to say, well, he was everybody's favourite uncle. He was kind of like that. He was a friendly man. He exuded warmth and enthusiasm about Scotland. Not only Scotland's mountains, but Scotland's cultures and Scotland's people, because Tom was, above everything else, a people person. He was great with people. He was great at interviewing people, great at talking to people. Although I will confess that one of his STV producers, Dermot McQuarrie, once said to me, he said, "The problem with working with Tom is he knows too much." You know, he said, "I remember an instance we went up to this wee croft house, and the crofter came out, and Tom says, 'Now tell me, wasn't this the house where Bonnie Prince Charles came after Culloden when he was fleeing from the Redcoats?' And he kind of went, and the crofter said, 'Aye.' And that doesn't make good television, you know, you try to get the other bit, but Tom was just so full of knowledge and information. And in fact, just talking about Dermot McQuarrie, Dermot went from Scottish television to America, and he is now Vice President for Sport for Fox Television in Los Angeles. And he's been following what's happening for this terrific Tom Weir Statue Campaign from America. And he sent me an email the other day, and if I could just read out what he said in this. He says, "Working with Tom was some of the best times in my TV career in Scotland. We travelled the length and breadth of the country, and what a fund of knowledge he was. Whether we were in Aberdeenshire at Colliston, where aircraftsman Shaw, Lawrence of Arabia, lived in happy obscurity, or in Orkney at the Italian Chapel, or in the island of Egg, or in the Cairngorms with the redoubtable blind climber Sid Scroggy. It was a marvellous adventure every time we set out. Making the programme Tom Weir at 70 was a great insight to the man who worked in the Springburn Co-op until he couldn't take it any longer. And Tom never forgot the look on the manager's big baw face when he took off his apron and quit. Tom brought the stories from the countryside of Scotland to the living rooms of Scotland, and I'm very proud to have been involved in that process. I'm also very pleased to be involved in raising some money for the statue to Tom, and thanks to everyone involved." Woo! Cameron McNeish from Palm Springs. I can also say that the publishers of the Scots magazine, and many of you will be aware that Tom wrote a monthly column in the Scots magazine for 45, 46 years, which is really quite astonishing. And the publishers have made a very generous donation to the statue campaign. So how about a wee round of applause for the publishers of the Scots magazine? I think that's absolutely marvellous. Now I want to finish now by introducing to another hero of mine. Tom Weir was certainly a hero of mine, somebody that inspired me from a young age. I often tell people that I was probably the only teenager in Scotland in the 60s who didn't buy New Musical Express or Melody Maker, but bought the Scots magazine because I wanted to read this My Month column by this wee man called Tom Weir.